The Israeli government announcing plans to build thousands of new homes in East Jerusalem and the West Bank. These are disputed areas captured by Israel in the Six-Day War in 1967. The move coming on the heels of a successful bid at the UN by the Palestinians to gain non-member observer state status. Christian Whiton joins us, former State Department senior advisor, principal with D.C. International Advisory. Christian, good to see you. President Obama lost on the settlements with Israel. He loses on the recognition by the Palestinians and the UN. What does this say about President Obama's policies? Are they not sound?
Well, they're not sound, and also we're decreasingly relevant to this process. You know, we've been ignored in the two instances you just cited. We were also essentially ignored the week before last when an element of the Palestinian leadership, Hamas, which runs Gaza, decided to go to war, also ignored by the UN. We are, incidentally, the largest benefactor of the United Nations, paying more than 25% of the budget of some agencies in peacekeeping budget, 20% of the general fund, and they feel free to ignore us. So, you know, it's a problem with the photo op foreign policy with few real accomplishments, and it's just sort of becoming more and more apparent to people around the world, I think.
We also supply aid to the Palestinians, humanitarian aid. Should that be reconsidered given their most recent actions against our strongest ally in the region, Israel?
Yeah, I think with any aid, you have to ask what it's doing. What political goal is it advancing? We keep harping on both parties, but seemingly harder on the Israelis, that we need to come to some sort of negotiation, get to the table, have an agreement, a peace agreement. I think we need to step back and realize the political factors aren't in place for an agreement. I mean, if you have Gaza run by Hamas, starting wars with Israel whenever you turn their back, it's just not going to lead to an agreement. So we should be focusing our money and our resources of statecraft on changing those political factors rather than writing these checks left and right.
Well, how do we change those political factors, and what is the possibility in the near or even distant future that there could be a reconciliation between Abbas and the Palestinian Authority and, on the other hand, Gaza, the Palestinians there controlled by what is essentially a terrorist group, Hamas?
Well, I have some optimism. Second-term presidents generally turn to foreign affairs, especially if they're not going to get a whole lot done in Congress, which after we get through this budget issue in the near term, I don't think President Obama will. But unfortunately, the factors in Israel are going in the wrong direction. I think Hamas basically lost in the war. They wanted to bring Egypt in directly. They wanted to end the peace agreement between Egypt and Israel. They failed at that. But unfortunately, the UN just decided to reward the Palestinians writ large for the war they started the week before last. So this seems to be getting farther and farther away from any reasonable agreement.
Do you worry that the most recent UN action will now only embolden the Palestinians to, yet again, launch terror attacks, rocket attacks against innocent Israeli civilians, and they may even now, given their recognition, try to harass Israelis by, filing charges at the International Criminal Court at The Hague?
Right. Now, those things tend to lead nowhere, but there is this problem that, the instrument that we are funding, that we founded, the United Nations, is giving the Palestinian government what it was unable to win on the battlefield. The bigger issue here also is not just that Palestinian politicians and terrorists feel emboldened, it's that the Iranian regime feels emboldened on everything it's doing across the Middle East, and that really is the puppeteer here. It's Iran that supports not only Hezbollah to the north of Israel, but Hamas, supplying it with funds, with training, with weapons. And, we're not doing anything either in Washington or New York to really push back on that, Slee.
Hillary Clinton has really not been getting a lot of criticism. But I wonder about that. I mean, she has talked so much about how many miles she's logged in countries she's visited. Is that statecraft?
No, it's the exact opposite, and it's this, photo op foreign policy. Rather than deal with political factors on the ground, which is really what statecraft is all about. It's been very important people going to very important meetings around the world, and this is not just true on Israel-Palestine, it's on Iran, it's on, remember, climate change and all these other crises, and it's just a lot of photo op stuff and no real changing of factors that affect U.S. interests more directly.
Christian Whiton, thank you very much. Good to see you.